Jim, 2 years it's taken us for us to do this interview. I think we've been planning and trying for so many projects, for so many works. I think it was Made in Heaven, then finally, I think then there was even Padmavat we were supposed to do, but then it never happened. And
Yeah,
now we're speaking for Taish during lockdown, and I'm just so glad to have you on Filme Shilmy. Thank you so much for joining me today.
I'm glad to be on finally. Yeah,
So how have you been? How has lockdown been for you?
I quite enjoyed the break. I enjoyed having some time off. I think if I was told to take 7 months off while the rest of the world continued, I would have been too jealous and competitive, and then I would have not taken the time off, and I would have wanted to jump in and try to get some work done myself.
Right.
But since the entire world was on pause, I could quite enjoy it. I was like, oh, wow, time to
Yeah.
do, yeah, time to do things that I've not had a chance to do, time to reconnect with friends I've not kept up with as well because we've all been so busy.
Hmm.
I adopted a cat off the streets the second day of lockdown. Her name is
Wow.
Mimi.
Oh my God, that's so cool. That's so
Yeah,
beautiful.
yeah. And I never thought I would be a cat person. And I really never. I often just look at Mimi and I'm like, who would have thought I could have loved a cat this much?
Yeah.
Yeah. I always just assumed I would get a dog eventually.
Yeah. I, do you know, it's interesting you say that because I think animals actually bring out the real humans in us, to be very honest, as well.
Could be, could be. I'm not always proud of how I am, so yeah. Uh,
Why are you not proud of who you are, Jim?
in the beginning, I was like, oh, you read up about cat behavior, what you need to do, and but by the like 12th plant that Mimi had completely demolished, it would be like, Mimi, get like I'd grab her and put her in the bathroom, and it's like, you're on a timeout. And it's like, oh
Oh,
my God, I've become my parents,
yeah,
something like that.
literally. I was
Yeah,
gonna say,
yeah.
like, it's almost like you becoming a parent. But
Yeah.
I think lockdown aside, I think, and it's so wonderful to hear that it went well for you. It's also very special because for the
I
first
mean,
time, we'll be seeing you in a positive role in Z5 Stash as well. I'm guessing this was the primary reason that sort of made you want to do the role, right?
I had a meeting with Vijay a while ago, and it was just a meeting. We just sat down, we ate some food, we chatted. He said he had some ideas, but he never told me any of them. So I was like, okay, well, I guess it was just a meeting to, look at my face. And then the next time we met, he narrated the story, and I was like, look, just tell me I'm not the psycho. I'm not the psycho, right? I'm not the antagonist. And he was like, no, no, you can. I was thinking of you for for either of these parts. And I was like, no, I really want to play Rohan. I'd like to play the sensible fellow. If anything, the voice of reason in the film. It's
Hmm.
interesting. It's interesting. They're promoting the film in a certain way, and I'm sure they have their own ideas. And there's lots of things like unleash the rage, but if anything, this movie is against unleashing the rage. And another thing recently, it's anything for family. They're putting out a lot, but the two strongest bonds in the film are non-familial, and those were the things that actually drew me to the film in the first place.
Hmm.
Is that sometimes your family can't quite understand you and how you are, and can even unconsciously be part of the problem
Right.
for you know cycles of abuse. And even if they aren't the perpetrators, they can be part of the problem sometimes.
Wow.
um and yeah, by not believing you, or not taking your side, or not standing with you, or not understanding you, or not trying to hear you when you talk about what happened to you, things like that.
Hmm.
So actually, my character, after a certain event in the film, more or less cuts off from the world and from his family. The only
Mm.
thing that draws him back in is his friendship. Actually, his friendship with Sunny, who's been his best friend his entire life, and um, so it was actually all of these things. And my character does try the whole film to steer the course away from cycles of violence.
Right.
And I was very interested in playing that kind of a character instead of somebody who is the characters I often get, who are very impulsive and very and like a little tinderbox.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's refreshing to see this because I've always seen you as a very multifaceted actor. I think I've always seen you as someone, if you can be as, fierce as you were in Nirja, you can also be as calm and as tender as perhaps glimpses of what we saw a little bit in Made in Heaven. Obviously, the character was great in that, but there were still moments where you kind of showed that tenderness, that lovey-doveyness. And I think it's great that we're getting to see a different side to Jim Saab. And I'm really glad that someone has seen that potential in you, and I'm glad that you're doing it. Um, I
Have you
also
watched sorry, Anuj, have you by any chance got to watch this short film that I was in called Sometimes I Think About Dying?
No, I've not had a chance to see it, to be honest.
It's really good. It played at Sundance, and then it got shortlisted actually as the live action short for the Oscars, but then we didn't make the
Wow.
final five, unfortunately.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
It's not coronavirus. And then I just got tested a couple days ago. Because of shoot, I keep
Yeah.
getting tested. So it's luckily that like I'm pretty well aware of you know what's going on.
No, don't worry.
Um,
Yeah.
anyway, that was the you should watch it. I think you might like it. And I think only in the Bollywood commercial sphere have people assumed that I'm good at the bad guy thing because things are they're a capitalistic system, and capitalistic systems rely on consistency.
Mm.
And for most people in the world, they need to see things to believe them, and if they only see one kind of thing, then that's the only thing that they believe, and so consequently, you're that flavor, and that's that. Um, but in the theatrical world so far, and in the more indie world, and basically with the people that know me better,
Mm.
um, than have just seen my work and interested in me.
Mm.
Uh, then I often get to play actually softer, sweeter characters.
Yeah.
What's cool about this guy actually in Tesh is that actually in his own way he's very strong-headed and very stubborn, and he has his own ideas, but he is strong emotionally and intellectually instead of like like that.
Yeah.
It's his consistency and his belief in his own ideas that he's taken a long time to formulate,
Mm.
and his that I really liked about him. So it's not that he's a pushover or he's weak or he's uh one particular way. It's that he's committed to his own ideas, and I love that. I find those characters really interesting.
Mm.
That
I,
the other person can be screaming and raging and breaking the room apart, and this it doesn't change my mind. I'm still believing what I'm believing. I don't have to scream to believe it, though. I like that.
yeah. He's
Yeah.
assertive. He's basically got his mind the right way. He's got he knows basically what he wants out of life. So that's the sort of vibe that I'm getting from the description that you're giving me and from what we saw in the trailer as well. In fact, I was going to say, it seems to be among the few Hindi films which kind of focus on criminality in the backdrop of Britain, that too through the lens of Indian characters. So how was your experience exploring that?
I just know that when we came to Southall the first time, I was like, what the fuck is this place? I had never been before in my life. Uh, and it was like we were in London, but we were not in London. And we traveled all this distance to be in a place that was India. But if you just moved off this like tiny street, if you just moved like, if I just would walk 4 streets down, there'd be people being like, "Oh, we don't understand what's going on that street," and it was just very, very like little, like I guess it's just I've never been to a little India, or I've never been to a place in another country where it's just completely dominated by Indians. It was wild. Anyway,
Yeah.
I just found that wild. Actually, the two families are kept pretty separate.
Right.
So it's a story about these two families. One is a family that is the older brother is the king of Southall.
Mm.
Um, the one we see the most in the film is the middle character. The middle brother. His name is Pali, played
Mm.
by Harshvardhan Rane.
Funny.
And our family is my younger brother is getting married, and I have a girlfriend, Arfa, who's Kriti Karbanda, and my younger brother is Ankur Rathi. And Sunny shows up at the wedding. Of course he does, because he's been like a brother to the two of us as well. And an event happens and the two worlds collide. And I really can't speak more about the particular event, because I think that's so far been kept an amazing secret. They've not let that out in the slightest.
Wow.
And that's a real game changer in terms of what this script is actually dealing with. And then there are the two, from that moment onwards, the families do intersect, but we kind of stay in our own spaces. And I really like that about the film, or I like that. Yeah, I like that about the film, and I definitely liked being able to take that approach. The approach of, like, if somebody burst into the room right now, from a that it really that had lived their entire lives in this crime family, and smashed up the room and left, I wouldn't know what to do. I mean, I wouldn't know where to find them, or like how to chase after them or exact revenge. I would just be like, whoa, what has just happened to me?
Mm.
I don't even know what the avenues are, because I'm not part of that world, and I've never tried to be a part of that world. And
Mm.
so I think my character is very clear about that. It's like, this is not our world. This is not how we are. This is not who we are. Going on a bizarre revenge mission, like, what'll that bring us?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I think I like that. I really liked being able to express that side of it, because I think it's true. I think it's more real. I think it's what would actually happen.
You've worked a lot on the digital space of recent as well. So, what satisfies you the most about working on the platform, and how much more flexibility does an actor actually
Well, when we made this movie, we thought it was going to be a cinematic release, a
have?
theatrical release. Yeah. It was supposed to come out like May 18th
Right.
this year, but then everything got thrown off kilter. Bijoy still claims that there might be a theatrical release, but I don't know. I doubt it. I feel like once everyone can watch it on ZEE5,
Yeah,
why would they
that's
pay
it.
to go and
Exactly.
watch them? I don't know. It just does. I don't know. Maybe it can have like a little boutique 1 week thing or something. Which would be cool. You know, friends and family could go and watch it big. That would be fun. But so I don't know anything about the flexibility in relation to this project specifically. I think it was just really long. Like when we watched the first cut, or when because I'm pretty annoying with Bijoy. I'm like, Bijoy, can I watch it? Bijoy, hey Bijoy, is it ready? Hey Bijoy. And so he was like, just come and watch one of the cuts, but it's too long. It isn't ready yet. It was like 3 hours or something. And I was like, whoa, okay. But I watched it, and then he had to cut it down, and he cut it down to something like 2:23 or 2:24.
Blimey.
And I think the final film is 2:24 or 2:23. And I watched it, and I missed it. I missed all the stuff from the 3 hours thing.
Wow.
Um, because in my opinion, and from when I read the script, I don't think of it as this like slick action adventure thing. I think of it a lot more as a character study, and a lot more as a like psychological portrayal of these people,
Hmm.
all stuck in cycles of violence, all trying in their own way to escape. Um,
Right.
so I missed it. So when I heard there were going to be 6 episodes, each about half an hour long, I'm like, oh, okay, good, 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 good. One, you'll get to experiment most likely with like changing timelines, because the potential for that was already there in the film.
Hmm.
Uh, um, so that'll be. So I have no idea what the series is like. Actually, I'm more looking forward to the series personally, because I can imagine how the film is based on the cut that I saw, and what I know about the script. And I might be surprised by certain things cut out, edited out to make it that length. But
Hmm.
I think that like I'm more like, oh, okay, how have you constructed it? What cliffhangers have you managed to like add in? Ooh, I would start with this track and then go here and then jump back in time and then follow this track, and then that's. So I'm interested in seeing how he's edited it together.
Right, right. I think it's interesting because it's a win-win situation. So we'll get to enjoy both the series and of course the film on Z5 as well. So I think everyone's looking forward to Dash. I think moving on and speaking a bit more about yourself, Jim. Prior to the
Hmm.
lockdown, you were enjoying a successful phase as an actor. I mean, given the fact that you had back-to-back successes in 2018, I mean, there was really no stopping you that year. That
Hmm.
was such a big year. And then I think obviously last year was really big as well. I mean, Made in Heaven, and you had a few other amazing content as well emerge as well last year. So it must have been quite a fruitful period for you this last couple of years. So when it kind of came to a bit of a halt, I mean, I know you did mention lockdown was a bit of a peaceful thing for you, but how was that sort of shift for you, kind of? Because in a way, it kind of went a bit quiet because obviously I believe you still have like, or at that point had pending releases. So how was that whole period for you?
Well, yeah. So last year was almost all digital. There was Sundance with Sometimes I Think About Dying. There was Made in Heaven. There was Flip. This thing called Flip, which was the other time I'd worked with Bijoy.
Hmm.
There's a on Eros now. There's an episode called The Massage, which I think you should watch. It's fun, and I get to play this guy that's come out of a 20-year coma.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's really, yeah, really fun.
Interesting.
Bijoy again, and uh, and so this year was supposed to be the theatrical release year. There was
Yeah.
supposed to be um, Taish in May, a secret film that I'm not supposed to talk about in October,
Oh my God. I want to know what it
and
is.
but we didn't finish shooting, so we never got. So I'm finishing it now.
Ah, okay.
And another film called Beneath the Sea of Lights, which was this film I shot a while ago, actually, in Dubai. And I'd been wondering if anything ever materialized, and I was told, oh, this, this month the distributors are taking it over, there's going to be a big release, la di da, in the States. But then nothing happened. So I should be really upset, but I'm not. I just enjoyed the lockdown too much. I just enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I think I needed to take some time and take a pause, and I think I had started. I had not started. I'd been in for a while these cycles of getting really busy with work, enjoying it, but also wondering, like, also secretly thinking that there could be more, we could be exploring more with it. There's no time. Once, I wish we rehearsed more. I wish people had a different work ethic, la di da di da di da. And then getting into a period of like numbing myself, because actually I wasn't so happy with the entire situation as it was, and I was still hoping that I would be getting different kinds of roles, and
right.
And sometimes there's this feeling that can happen, even no matter how outwardly it looks like you're doing well, of oh, it's not enough, or oh, I'm lonely, or and so I was just losing touch with how I actually felt about things, because I wasn't talking to anybody about it. I wasn't really talking to my friends about it, because you don't want to sound like, oh, the person that's doing well is complaining, so you just learn to like put on a bit of an act and a bit of a show, and oh, it's fun, yeah, Jim, everything's fine, everything's great, and you do that act, and then you get busy again, and then you come out of the busyness and you do the act, and then suddenly you don't have that like deep connection with yourself, and consequently you lose the deep connection with your friends, because if you don't have a deep connection with yourself, you can't really listen or engage with the other person's problems, because you're not listening or engaging with your own problems. And so instead everything becomes a bit of a shallow interaction where you wind up talking about yourself, or you wind up half listening to the other person, and you never quite, I don't know, you never quite
with it
develop anything, or are with it, or So I think I needed the pause. Actually, I'd already been coming up to the lockdown anyway. Before the lockdown was released, I remember sitting with a friend, Vivek Gomba.
Oh wow!
His film is coming out. I mean, his film is like doing the rounds just now. The Disciple.
So,
He's more interested in acting work just now. We'll get to see him in a couple things coming out. Bombay Begums on Netflix, and
a suitable book as well.
Suitable Boy, exactly. Yeah, but the thing we end up talking about a lot more is the films that he's producing. So Caught first, and now The Disciple. That the Disciple just won big at Venice, won Best Script. Yeah, and fingers crossed for whatever the journey of that film is. But anyway, we were discussing some things, and we were discussing how generally I was kind of in a refocusing place, where it wasn't about adding new things or taking anything out. It was just more about like just refocusing on the priorities that I actually have now, as opposed to continuing to believe I had different priorities. I think actually a lot of people's frustration comes from not realizing that their priorities are no longer what they were 4 years ago or 3 years ago. Actually, they've changed somehow in that time, and they just haven't taken the time to acknowledge and relook at the new priorities. And so you are still striving for those old priorities, wondering why they're not giving you satisfaction, because it's actually because you have different priorities now, and you just need to make that refocusing, and then everything just starts flowing again kind of normally.
Mm.
So I think the lockdown was a good time to do a bit of this refocusing, and
Sure.
it was nice.
So what would you say is that new focus for you now?
Mm. I think in the beginning it was just work, work, work. Like when it was making a mark in theater, when I moved, I'd just do every play that I was offered,
Mm.
like everything. And then it got to a point where it's like, no, I just want to pick the ones I really, really want to do now. I don't want to just be doing everything. Similarly with film, it was like work, 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 work. And for like 2 or 3 years in between, I just worked non-stop. I didn't do anything. When it was Padmavat and Sanju and Smoke that ran straight into Made in Heaven, this was like 3 years where I just did nothing but shoot.
Mm.
2 years, yeah. And I think now it's a bit like, no, if I don't have like a good group of friends that I'm really connected with, if I don't have someone in my life that I can call a partner, that I can really share everything with, um, then a lot of those things wind up feeling a bit empty. So,
Hence the cat.
yeah. Hence the cat, for example, the cat. Yeah, that's one good beginning. Uh, it's amazing. It's truly amazing. Like, I've lived so much of my life just being like, okay, now I'm going here. Except now I'm like, oh God, if I'm going here, what'll I do with the cat? Okay, I need to arrange somebody to come and stay for a few days. And I'm calling back home just to, video chat with the cat.
Yeah, good luck with understanding what they're trying to say.
Yeah. Do
That's
you have any pets?
I think that's wonderful to kind of hear, Jim, as well.
The way I look is in what can be sometimes a slightly, again, I was tempted to say myopic, but I don't believe it's actually myopic. I believe it's just like McDonald's. Consistency works. So within a consistent system, which filmmaking is, it's a capitalistic system, especially if you're part of like a bigger industry like that. But then they preferred a certain kind of face as the lead. And so consequently, just the way that I looked already slotted me in easier as somebody not from India. So I think that's why Nirja happened so easily.
Mm.
Yeah, they need to reach the entire expanse, and like I may not be an incongruous face in Bombay, but I might be an incongruous face in Gorakhpur, which is fair enough. And they're reaching all over the country. But again, like so suddenly South Indian filmmakers are kind of reaching out to me again, usually to play the villain. But I just it's refreshing to read about how all of the Jews that they used to interacting with down south, that are just part of their community, that I would look like and I could fit in so easily and just be a part of the film without it seeming incongruous at all. So I think that's why I got cast as in Nirja in the first place. And then I think it continued along that track because Nirja happened, and then Rabta happened. Again, I was a bad guy, and then Padmavat and
Sanju as well.
Sanju happened. Yeah. And so Smoke was actually the first time that I was kind of offered a part where I was like, where I was working for a bad man, but I wasn't the bad person. And instead I managed to run away with everything by the end of the season. And you like me, and the show is kind of about my journey. And so I was like very like, yeah, okay, all right, this is great. Opportunity to play something different, just be like, and I hope to continue getting those opportunities. But I have started to notice one thing, which is interesting, that actually as a villain, you can kind of get away with anything if you can do it with enough commitment.
Yeah.
But yeah, and actually being the like romantic, charming person or whatever is a bit more inflexible because there are more ideas of like what that is supposed to look like. Whereas a villain, if you can do it, you can really look like almost anything.
Mm,
Um, it's
mm,
interesting, which I disagree with. I believe that like the 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 male romantic lead can be any which way, just as long as it's the right way for the the female romantic lead. That's all that matters. I
yeah.
remember actually flying back from Sundance, being really, really tired. Last night there, so out all night and on the plane, and it just so happens that there was a girl that I had met at Sundance was like also flying back on the same flight, so we figured out sitting next to each other. And I remember I was like, I was like flopped on her, and she kind of had her arm around me, and I was like flopped, like this. And I had this image of being told by a director to like, no, sit up straight and like put my arm around her and let her flop on me. And I was like, but that's not what's actually happening. What's
Mm,
actually happening is the opposite. And at no point do I feel any less a man. And at no point does this girl feel any less a woman. It's just the roles are reversed in this particular case, and it's fine.
mm,
Um, so I'm always trying to, just bring a bit more of what I actually see and what I actually feel into films, so we can kind of get out of this rigid ideas of masculinity and femininity and
mm.
romance and all of that stuff. Because from what I see, the roles change and flip and dance all over the place.
Absolutely, yes. And I think it's so necessary as well because times are changing. And I think with the changing times, I think we also have to change as well. Because I know often people say that film mirrors society, but I also think that if film can mirror society, it can also have the potential to start a conversation or at least show perhaps a world that we would like to live in, or a world that would be better living in, with better conditions to live in, rather.
Yeah, and people start to imitate films, thinking that films are the right way, and then it becomes this like strange self-propagating cycle that is like getting people actually further and further away from the realities of friendship and love and commitment and belief in ideas and all of that stuff. When actually I'm always hoping for I'm always hoping to be able to play parts that can, instead of making the circle more like concentric and tiny, that instead they become wider and overlapping and actually continue to explore the possibility of like infinite forms of expression and understanding, because it just is the case.
Mm,
It just is the case. So I try to, and I can't always do it, but I try to think like, oh, is this like a line that I've heard from five other films, or is this a line I've heard people actually say?
right, right. Also, I've realized that there's a bit of an unpredictable vibe to your characters. I've realized that sometimes, especially like the gray ones as well. Whether it's the positive or the gray characters or the bad ones, one simply can't gauge what he will do next. How do you manage to bring out that behavior in some of your
Because
roles?
I get bored.
That's it. You just get bored. That's what. That's what helps you to
Pretty,
bring out the unpredictability in your characters, Jim.
pretty much, I'm just like, oh yeah, this scene is going like all those other scenes. Fuck it, let's do something else. But I do believe that it's not the job of some people will be like, you just need to be true and be realistic, and it's like, well, yeah, but it's also a story. and a movie, and you have to be true and realistic. Yes, that's like base level. But I feel you should also be surprising. And you think I if I think about what I like about a film, I like being kept guessing. I like there to be a certain amount of mystery that is only answered later. I like to not completely understand everything as it's happening,
Mm.
and to have to either piece it together later or piece it together within the film itself. Um, so I don't see why what I like about storytelling should be different than what I like about acting. So I can't stand when I'm watching a film and I feel like I know exactly what is going on in this person's head the whole time. I'm like, that's not true. I mean, most people that I interact with, especially once you get closer to them, you think that that means you know exactly what's up all the time. It's like, no, you don't. Even in those moments, you're still like, hey, what are you thinking? Or like, what's going on? What happened there?
Mm.
Something just happened to your face that I don't know. I don't have a clue what it is because it seems so disconnected from the moment. So what was happening? And the person will be like, oh no, I started thinking about this other thing. And it's like, okay, okay. And so similarly, in a film, I always like the freedom to be able to do that. It isn't always possible,
Mm.
especially in like bigger commercial films. They want everything to be like really, really clear. Um, Sometimes I wish that, I could react to something surprising that's happening in the scene with like, like what is going on, but
Yeah.
oftentimes, and then like have it fall into place like later, be like, I guess he was being funny,
Mm.
but most directors will direct you to just be like, no, like laugh. You think it's funny. And it's like,
Oh
but
wow.
I hadn't taken it in immediately. And it's like, no, but it's supposed to be funny. So laugh. It's like, oh, okay, I will. And then
Right.
you make that work. Things are collaborations at the end of the day. Like
Indeed.
you have to try to find a way to do both now. So you just like squeeze the time in instead. So the first reaction can be like, you can still get what you want. And actually
Right.
what ends up being, I find the most interesting is like, okay, if my impulse was to keep it surprised for longer, but the director's impulse is like, okay, we don't understand what's happening then because we see your surprised face and we don't know how to react as an audience, as a consequence, because like we're seeing the character through your eyes in this particular scene. It's like, oh, okay. So then what ends up becoming fun is being able to do both, which is what I just did, which is of the like the surprise, but it leads into the laughter that surprises you. Uh,
Right. Okay.
you know?
I get it. So it's that balance basically of doing what you're told to do because you're an actor at the end of the day, but then adding your own sort of spin to it, which is basically what you often do in your roles too, as well.
Yeah, coming to some nice midpoint
Middle
between
ground.
the thing that you wanted to do versus the thing the director's asked you to do. And usually that ends up being the most interesting because then you have two opposite reactions. One is like, I don't know how to react and I'm completely surprised. And the other, which is, but you think it's funny.
Mm.
So then instead of just like looking and being like, which is a one note thing, or just being surprised, which is again a one note thing, you get to do both.
Right. And that's why you're being able to portray such characters so well, Jim, which are sort of, which are because your characters aren't very like one dimensional, so to speak. I mean, I think even the characters which are more on the positive side as well, there's always that sort of layers to them. And I think that's why you bring it out so well, is because you have that awareness. And would you say that awareness has perhaps come from your experience vastly in theatre as well?
I think what's cool about theater is you get time. So you get time to work a scene. You get time to really explore all the dimensions that could be there, and you get a couple days off, and then you get to work on the scene again. So what ends up happening is your first reading of the scene, you realize maybe to be too simplistic. Then you go through like 10 other iterations of the scene, and then maybe you'll come back to your first reading of it and be like, actually, the first impulse was actually the right one in this particular case. But now you'll know that all these other iterations are also possible. So inevitably, those shades might sneak in on different days, depending on what the other person is giving you. And so it's not that you've like left your first impulse. It's just, you know, that it's not that. So for example, there's no such thing as anger, right? It's always anger hyphen, anger
Mm-hmm.
hyphen jealousy, anger hyphen pettiness, anger hyphen sadness, anger hyphen hurt, anger hyphen joy, even, you know, it can, and oftentimes the most interesting scene is one, and just the truest representation of things is like that two opposites are in play, and that's all thanks to Tim McDonough from Emory University. Tim McDonough, right? He taught this class, and his big theory on acting is that it's constantly a game between two opposites. So like a person you're seeing being very confident, it's that they're choosing confidence to hide their insecurity. So there's no such thing as just confidence. Confidence is being played in direct opposition to the insecurity. And so if you see the scene where the person is only confident from the beginning until the end of it, it's not as fun as seeing them being confident the whole scene, except for this one moment where you suddenly saw how insecure they were and how much they were actually overcoming of it, and then suddenly you're on their side.
Mm.
And it's really just that simple. And I think that it is the case for all of us. You never just feel one thing. It's always a complicated mix of a couple things that you
Mm.
can't fully understand, that you're labeling as it's happening. There's a great theory, and a psychological theory called the cognitive labeling theory,
Mm.
which is about how you feel things. You feel emotional reactions, and then based on the circumstances, you label what it actually is. So your purely physiological response to running towards a lover you haven't seen in 20 years is the same as running away from a bear. It's just you label them differently because
Wow.
you can judge the context.
Yes. Yes.
So so similarly, I do feel that, like, yeah, so you know, your best friend has done something you really don't want him to have done. You really don't want him to have done that. You think he's absolutely wrong for having done it. And then he tells you why, and you understand. You feel for him also. You feel pity and sympathy, and you want to comfort him, but that doesn't change that you think he's wrong.
Mm.
So playing just, no, you idiot, is not quite right. It's,
It seems
no,
fake,
I,
actually. Yeah. It seems very
yeah,
fake
it's
and artificial.
exactly. It's complicated. It becomes okay. I mean, I hear you. I feel for you also. It's just I still disagree with you now. What can I do?
I feel it in Indian cinema. I feel there's a lot of lack towards gray characters. We have like you said, the positioning. And I think that's perhaps why you were, like, especially on the successful commercial Bollywood film, that's perhaps why you did the negative roles, is because of that positioning, you know? Like, we don't have gray characters perhaps taking center stage as much as they should be. Why do you think Indian cinema isn't as apt as perhaps bringing out gray characters?
Well, I think it's the tendency for it to happen in countries where films are looked at purely as films are first and foremost looked at as forms of entertainment. So in entertainment, you want simple stories where everything is manageable and everything is understandable, and you don't have to think too much, and you can go forget your worries for a while and then come back home. And in those kinds of situations, you don't want to be watching things of moral ambiguity. You want to be watching clear things, because in your life nothing is that clear. And I think for a lot of our country, there is like an immense amount of suffering and immense amount of gray, actually. Um, and people want to go to the cinema and see somebody that's clearly white and aspirational. By white, I mean what we've come to believe as like purity, which, you know, I guess is a silly way of putting it. But uh,
But it exists. That thought exists.
yeah, but you want to see, you just want to see somebody that's like good, clearly good. They do the right thing. They fight on the side of good.
Absolutely.
They, you know, even if they unnecessarily beat up thousands of people, that's okay, because they're fighting for the side of good, and that's great. And they do it, and they save the heroine,
Yeah.
and it's something to move forward towards. And the bad guy is just bad all the time. He does not have a perspective that is valid. He's evil. And then you can come home and be like, okay, I am the good guy. I am fighting on the good stuff. These other people are evil that are against me. Um, um, so I think that's kind of how it goes in situations where it's purely entertainment. I think there's a hunger for different stories and more truer stories now, and for people to be able to understand that no, actually, this kind of outlook on the world actually does not help change things or alleviate suffering in any way. And actually, it's in a weird way, it continues to allow it to continue.
Mm.
Um, um, because looking at the complication is actually the way to sort things out. Like, actually being able to see the complication is the first step towards being able to start to unravel it.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah.
and so I think things are changing. I think great characters will have already started to come to the forefront a lot more. Um, did you watch Patal Lok?
It was so interesting to see. Literally, there was no hero or villain, and even the villain, Hathora Tyagi, for me wasn't actually a villain. Like, I spoke with Abhishek actually. I remember at the time of the release, and you know his character and the whole what his character goes through kind of reminded me of Arthur Fleck from Joker in a very interesting
Mm,
way. The dejected people from society and how they're
mm,
forced and compelled to literally take up a life of crime because of humans kind of ignoring them and ignoring their kind of pain. And that pain leads them to no other choice but to become the criminals that they do. And I think that was so fascinating.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Like the Hathora is a product of caste-based violence, and
Yeah.
the more you find out about it, the more you realize that like this person, that's this like dreaded criminal, is actually a completely simple person with a very, you know, the simple ideology for life, and has been born out of a case where uh, upper caste Thakur boys have
Mm.
raped his sister, uh, his sisters, and it's just so I liked it. I like that it's complicated. It looks at the complicated. I think I think there's a big problem just now in many societies where we like to think of things only as punitive. Um, Even when the Hathras case that recently happened, there were
Mm.
lots of calls on social media to make stricter, harsher punishments, and calls to like kill the rapists. And yes, there should be punishments and people should be afraid. But I think we think of the world in this punitive manner, which I think is part of an authoritarian view of life that is not actually about creating social change or moving towards a better, more balanced society, but is all about taking a simplistic view of life that Bollywood has sometimes presented, where there is good and there is evil, and the two are separate.
Mm.
And I think instead, the entire society is to blame for situations like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not as simple as saying these people are animals and nothing like us and separate from us and they should be punished. It's like, no, they have been born out of our society and we need to change things, deeply rooted, ingrained things, in order to actually change this in the long run. Simply being afraid of punishment just means that people will either find ways to like hide from the punishments or will find ways to hide their crimes more. Um,
Mm.
uh, to create real change, you need counseling in schools, you need sex education, you need greater emphasis on mental health, you need to give members of society upward mobility.
Mm.
You need to change a system where everyone feels absolutely stuck in the positions that they're born into and they feel like they have no opportunity whatsoever to change that. And so basically you have lots of very, 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 very angry people
Mm.
pretending like everything is okay. And so the first opportunity they get, they're ready to explode.
Absolutely. And I think, and I'm really glad you mentioned this, and I think, and it's really well said because unless if you're an actual serial killer or maybe just born with some sort of mental disorders, most of the villains that we see are pretty much one of us,
Normal people. Yeah.
one of us. हम में से एक है, basically.
Mm.
You've explored it all. You've played the good, you've played the bad, you've played the ugly, you've played everything in between. What do you think will push the boundaries more for you as an actor now?
Um, I don't know. Um, I'm enjoy. I'm enjoying on my current shoot. Um, being back in a really like large scale,
Right.
really having time to work on a scene, and I'm back in a situation where it takes 2 days to shoot a single scene, as opposed to other things where like you shoot like 4 scenes in a day at least. And so I'm enjoying being in that grander scale for a bit.
Mm-hmm.
And then I start another project. I may do a bit of a play in November.
Oh wow.
Um,
Are theaters open now as well?
no, but me and Bruce Guthrie, who works at the NCPA, were thinking of recording a version of Seawall, which I did last December.
Mm.
It's a really amazing play, just wonderful play. Um, and then I'm starting another project in December, which I'm really excited about, which will be a long, long project. It'll take me all the way up until December, January, February, March or so. So,
Okay.
so I guess just what I've already kind of got is what I think is gonna, uh,
Push the boundaries
is
for you.
gonna, yeah, yeah, yeah.
I think so too. And I think it's just great as well. I think, Jim, honestly, I think having actors like you, it gives us hope, in a very interesting way because I think you, like I said, because you are so versatile and you have that ability to switch so well, I think it only just makes me very excited and very intrigued and curious to see what we have next to see from Jim Saab. And I'm really looking forward to seeing you in Dash on ZEE5. as well as these upcoming projects, which I know you have to keep mum about, but I'm definitely really excited to catch up with you. And I hope we can kind of speak about those as well in the near future whenever things sort of materialize and you have the green light to speak about those.
Yes, I would love to.
Amazing. Amazing. But Jim, 2 years wait, but God, it
Yeah.
was so worth it. Thank you so
Yes.
much for joining me on Filme Shilmy today. Thank you.
Thanks, Anuj. It's been great chatting with you. So nice and easy and lovely.
Thank you. Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, Jim.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.